What's going on, everyone? Sly aka Gray Fox here, and today I'm here to talk about the Q&A that was released about 3 hours ago from Atlas in regards to Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux back in February. On February 26th, Atlas on Twitter asked you, the community, for questions in regards to Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux, and we just got the answers. And they enlisted the help of the core of the development team. So director Eiji Ishida, the world setting investigator and level designer Tatsuya Watanabe, and the new demon designer, as well as Alex, the new character in Redux, Alex's character designer, Masayuki Doi. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. The first few questions are about Strange Journey in general. The starting question: Strange Journey's settings stand out among fantasy JRPGs and even other SMT games. Why go for a military setting in the Antarctic? Ishida says that he decided to make Antarctica the stage for this game to pay respects to the vaunted tradition in science fiction disaster films where the majority of the unprecedented danger starts in Antarctica, so movies like The Thing, and things like that. He says he's partially joking about this, but one of the reasons was that he didn't want the cause of the Schwarzfeld appearing to be tied to any specific country or people, like, you know how normally Tokyo is a setting for all the, or a lot of the Shin Megami Tensei franchise entries. So he decided to have it in Antarctica. And he wanted the location to symbolize a place where the negative karma of all humanity would gather, and wanted to start the story from a place that didn't belong to anybody. So that's really a good answer and a good way to kind of world build around somewhere other than, you know, Japan and Tokyo. As for the military setting, everyone has armaments, but strictly speaking, those investigating the Schwarzfeld aren't armed forces. The task force that the protagonist belongs to and the commander of the ship are all soldiers, but within the investigation team, there are countless specialists in scientific and technological fields from all over the world. I think that having people across the globe work together as one against an unprecedented danger is a setting that really raises morale. So you see, I believe Gore was from America, Zelen, Russian scientists. I want to say Jimenez was from South America, if I remember. I've been playing Strange Journey, like, on a few rare occasions when I'm not playing Apocalypse right now, because I'm getting ready for Apocalypse on Saturday for Shin Megami Tensei Saturday, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. But yeah, I need to go back and play a little bit more. It's been years since I played a full playthrough, so I definitely want to do that. Next question: what made you have a game where the main characters are all adults in their 30s instead of the usual teenagers save the world trope that SMT goes for? With every other entry, probably, yeah, almost every other entry, with the exception, well, I would usually like to leave Persona out of it, but I'll include Persona, because Persona follows this trope too, with the exception of Persona 2, Eternal Punishment, because most of them were adults. Yeah, you see this trope of, you know, teenagers, you know, going to school, the apocalypse starts to happen, or demons run rampant, excuse me. And yeah, basically the teenagers have to save the world, whereas in Strange Journey, these are adults. These are, you know, scientists and soldiers from like 30 plus. And Ishida goes to say that he didn't really consider this too much when he was thinking about the setting. When talking to Kazuma Kaneko, praise be, the creator of the original version, we naturally ended with those types of characters as we talked about the main points of the story in the setting. The storyline surrounding the investigation team descending into internal conflict amid a desperate struggle for survival was written as a representation of the whole of humanity, and it was decided upon the very early stages of the discussion. I believe we determined that to write this from the viewpoint of a younger boy or girl would lose some of the reality. But then again, he goes on to say that there are masterpieces like the film Lord of the Flies, so he thinks that a young boy or girl being the main character for this topic could have been just as entertaining. I kind of have to disagree with him there. Basically, me personally being jaded from seeing, you know, all the other entries where it's just a boy in his teens or early 20s. I like to see the deviation from this. I like to see actual grown-ass adults, you know, confronting demons and everything that the SMT setting always has to offer. Next question being, what difficulties did you face when adding new story concepts to this latest version? They go on about this, like, there are a few other questions about, you know, what new content will there be and everything. But with this, he says, we've added a story that leads to 3 new endings in this game. It's extremely difficult to try and explain this without spoilers, but this new story branches off from the original game's story. Because of this, it was extremely hard trying to keep everything consistent. Since the story has multiple plot lines tangled together like a bowl of spaghetti, my brain was constantly overheating from the detail overload. However, we were able to work in surprising turns of events that can only be done in sci-fi work, so I'm very satisfied with the end product of this added story. Rarely do you see an addition, kind of like a Persona 4 Golden to normal Persona 4, where it doesn't pan out in a positive way. And I think I'm optimistic that this will follow suit and that, you know, nothing gets lost amidst the new story with Alex and everything. So yeah, I'm really optimistic. I don't think the fans of the older Strange Journey will be disappointed in any way. Next question, when developing this title, how did you decide on what new content to include? How much new content were you able to put in before your team decided on any additional content should be saved for a new game? Or rather, was there any content that you felt didn't fit this theme of Strange Journey, so you cut it? There are 2 main points regarding the addition of new content. First is to add more enjoyment and challenge for those users that have played and cleared the previous game. This includes the additional story and dungeon, and of course, additional demons. Second is to add all sorts of ease of play for the users that are considering buying the game, and we'll get to that in a minute. This also involves adding graphics that make the game's world look even more attractive. You've also added things like multiple difficulty settings and character busts and voices to increase the level of expression within the event scenes. The event scenes evolved into a more dramatic look, and we believe we increased the emotional attachment to the story greatly. Furthermore, we created cutscenes that should convey the world of SJR even more clearly. It's like a preview to a movie, and there should be no problem drawing people into the game's world, so please give it a look. There weren't any specific ideas that were cut because they didn't match the theme, but early in development for the remake, we were thinking of adding new rules to Demon Fusion. However, the addition of these rules would have mischievously made the game more complex, so we didn't add them. If we get the chance, we would like to implement those ideas in another game. And I kind of agree with that. A lot of people just like Demon Fusion just to be basic. You'll have your higher tier Demon Fusions where you can fuse more than two demons or 3. But if you add certain mechanics on top of that, I believe it gets lost and it loses the simplicity that it's always had. So honestly, I think that was a good thing to just keep Demon Fusion the way it is. When you talk about negotiations or things like that, you really can't add any more RNG to negotiations than there already is, and like just don't touch that. And not only like Strange Journey, but any SMT, just don't touch it. What inspired the new character Alex? Alex's creation was due to us wanting to add a character that would symbolize the new scenario. She persistently pursues you, the protagonist, to try and kill you, but the reason why she chases after you will come to light in the added scenario. I refrain from saying anything further so I don't take away from the fun of playing this game. Still, when the reason for her action is learned, the player will be forced to make a heavy and difficult choice. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Alex has to add to his story. They go on to talk about it a little bit further, and we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Strange Journey was a great installment with an original story with an excellent sci-fi setting. Will you guys ever make a future title with the same sort of atmosphere? Maybe a story that takes place in space. Ishida says, if able, I would like to make a sequel to the game, which I am for, but I currently don't know if that can be made a reality. There is dialogue in the game suggesting that the angel Mastema may have originated somewhere beyond this Earth, so it would be strange if the stage was set in space as well. Is Ishida saying that Mastema was from space? I mean, we kind of know, you kind of get the lore for every demon. Whenever you have, in a lot of the SMT entries, you get a lore page for each demon, and Mastema has his own lore. He's a fallen angel. He's been in countless games like, I was gonna say The Lost Child, which isn't even out yet, but he is a central figure in, I think it's actually a she in The Lost Child. But they kind of deviate from the lore a little bit in that game. But he's been in a few other media as well. He's been depicted in a few other media as well. So to say that he's from space, I don't know about that. And I don't know about a entry in space. I think that would be something more for an MMO type setting. I don't know. We'll just have to see how it pans out. If we ever get a Strange Journey sequel? Hopefully, I hope and pray they keep it on Earth. I think it's okay to branch out to Western locations. They even talk about that later in this Q&A. But yeah, to venture out in space, I think would be a little too far-fetched in my opinion. Next question: what was the coolest scrapped idea you guys had for SJR? We just went over the question about like ideas that got cut, mainly because they didn't fit into the theme of Strange Journey. But this one was interesting. Talking about scrapped ideas is a bittersweet thing that evokes a feeling of defeat, but it also doesn't feel fair to only answer questions that are appropriate for promoting the game. So I'm going to be resolute here and come clean. In this game, we were planning to add an additional element from the second run of the game, an in-game app called New Megami Tensei. It began as a joke that was implemented in the original version, and nothing would happen when you launched the app. But this time, instead of a joke, we were thinking of actually having the in-game app, a mini-game, launch within the game. The plan was when you launch the app, it would start up as a combat simulator, and the idea was that you'd be able to continuously play a roguelike procedurally generated dungeon. But the actual costs were too great and it couldn't be implemented. I do regret that we weren't able to implement it, but if I had forcibly had this implemented, then we wouldn't have been able to invest as much time into increasing the quality of the vital main story of the game, so I do think it was the right decision in the end. And it was thanks to our prudent staff that I was finally convinced to give up on implementing it. It would have been interesting to see how it would have panned out, but I definitely do understand sacrificing, a fun little mini game, and in terms of the actual main story, like not losing any quality in the main story or any of the new elements. So you kind of see developers have this feeling of loss when there's something that they strongly want in the game, but like all of the development team just says, no, we can't afford it, we can't do it, we don't have enough time, we don't want to sacrifice development time or quality to other aspects of the game. So it's definitely understandable scenario. What were you looking forward to most when revisiting Strange Journey for this remake? Ishida says, for the original version, hearing the various comments through social media was a source of encouragement. Of course, the opposite was true too, but that can't be helped. I do look forward to hearing such direct impressions for this time as well. Coming from the development side, I look forward to how well the more expressive event scenes turned out. In regards to criticism is okay, as long as it's constructive. So when you do get your hands on Strange Journey Redux, let the devs know what you think. As long as it's constructive, just don't go saying the game is trash if you don't like it or if it's too difficult, which we'll get to. But yeah, just be constructive about everything you experience, and that just goes with any game, not only Strange Journey Redux, but any game. Just be constructive. Really good question. How did you guys come up with the idea for Strange Journey? To borrow the words from the original version's creator, Kaneko, wouldn't it be good to have a Megami Tensei that you could fill the space of the small gaps of time you had like Tetris or Minesweeper does? That was the start of the idea. Which means that at the start of development, we tried to make something where you could keep enjoying dungeon and exploration and demon fusing with not much story. You might find it surprising, but this is true. We were thinking of creating something with a different idea as a spin-off title. We ended up creating a story-rich game that was the opposite of the initial idea, but the concepts and spirit that were presented initially have been woven firmly into the game. And I believe it is a game that you can easily play with a short amount of time on hand, thus it's on 3DS. And this concept has not only been passed down to this remake version, but strengthened even further. Also, regarding the story portion, it goes without saying that it's taken influence from science fiction disaster horror movies such as The Thing. When developing the original version, the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, the pilot version, was airing in Japan. So this is often a topic of conversation, and I believe there were considerable influences from this work as well. Both works do depict survival within the harshest environment. He goes on to say, like, the kind of analogies he takes from other forms of sci-fi media. I'm surprised that he was actually watching Battlestar Galactica, and that tape was taken into account. So it's really good to see where some of the themes within Strange Journey kind of originated from, or how some of the ideas originated. The elephant in the room. Regarding the difficulty for newcomers, let me just go ahead and get this out the way right now before I even read any of these questions and answers. In the past, I have said that the bar of entry for the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, I always say Nocturne or 4. Those are really good, entry points into Shin Megami Tensei. Always, when asked about Strange Journey, I always turn people away because it can be quite difficult. The original can be quite difficult. So, it would really hurt your feelings if you weren't prepared. If you just went in and not knowing any previous knowledge of SMT games or how they worked or how they were difficult in general, you would have a sour taste in your mouth. Ishida says, for the remake, we've added several difficulty settings. The difficulty you play on will have no impact on the ending, so feel free to choose the level that's most comfortable for you. I'll also add that it's possible to change the difficulty at any time while you're playing the game, except for the hardest difficulty, which is understandable. If you feel like the game is too hard, try changing to a lower difficulty, and it should become more manageable. DLCs, both free and paid, that provide players with additional support will be available at launch as well, so please check them out. This is something, I guess, akin to the Maka leveling apps DLC in SMT4 and Apocalypse, which has become a topic of discussion recently in my stream. One of my followers always gives me shit for using, like, I mainly use the App Point DLC in SMT4. Mainly I wanted the apps, so I use the App Point DLC, and I tell people, use the fucking DLC. Don't be ashamed to use DLC just to, help out with your experience. It takes away nothing. It doesn't make you less of a player if you use DLC to aid in you leveling or anything like that. So fuck that. Use DLC. We've also made it so that you can now save and suspend your game from within dungeons. Thank you, God. Even if you die in battle, you won't have to start over from a save station like in the original game. Now you'll have the option to restart near the last place you saved within the dungeon. As long as you save somewhat frequently, you won't feel like you're losing a significant amount of progress, I hope. Yeah, this was a huge thing in Strange Journey. There were quite a few times when I was actually trying to get to a save because I was trying to, stop. I was ready to get off the game, and I got murdered by just a random mob. Almost there was one point where it was right next to the save station. So that was, I almost broke my 3DS. But yeah, I'm glad that they're implementing this, so you don't have to scramble to find a save station. And those new to Strange Journey, there are save stations around where you can, I believe the same save station will allow you, once you advance further enough, to teleport back to the entrance of the part of the dungeon you're in. So yeah, I'm glad that they're doing this. Another good question, another thing that has come up a lot, because we see this as of recent, people know of the Persona franchise. They don't know that it's tied to SMT. We can get into that in a totally different video. I can go on for at least an hour or so talking about that. But this question asks, I'm a huge fan of the Persona series. One of the big reasons for that is how interacting with certain characters can affect gameplay. Is there a similar system in this game? I'll go ahead and answer this before he answers it. No. Mainline SMT games work a little bit differently from Persona. This was kind of introduced in Persona 3, where you have the social link system and you interact with not only your party, but people around town, and you build social links which will, give you demon fusions, as well as, in the form of Persona 5, give you additional stats to kind of help you out on your journey. Mainline SMT, it doesn't really work like that. You do interact with characters, speaking from Nocturne's experience, based on who you interact with and based on your interactions and what you say can affect the ending. So you have your friends and they split off. I'm not going to spoil too much. I say I'm not going to spoil too much, but the moratorium on spoilers is far past, so fuck it. Based on your friends who split up, they end up becoming different reasons or different beliefs or belief systems in that game, which those reasons have their own ending. God, the names escape me, and I played this a few weeks ago, so I should know. But you could go down the true demon path, which I guess you could kind of classify as neutral. What were the other reasons? I forget the name of the reasons itself. I only know them by the characters. I would have to look it up on a different video. But yeah, basically your interaction with the characters pretty much pans out your ending. So if you sided with Chiaki, for example, you sided with her reason, you didn't have to fight her in the ending or the Tower of Kagetsuchi, and vice versa. So it doesn't really work like Persona, and he goes on to say, I would like to say yes, but unfortunately there isn't a system centered around deepening your relationships with other characters. Strange Journey is a story about a clash of ideologies, so there's some level of trust that is formed between you and your allies. And you do get that feeling of being a part of a team, but it's not quite the same as what you would get in Persona. That said, the story isn't all killing and nothing else. We mix some lighthearted humor as well. Your fellow soldiers can sometimes give requests that are different from the usual serious side quests you get as you play through the story. These often come with a light comedic touch and can range anywhere from confronting a demon that has taken over the bathroom to assisting a man who has fallen in love with a demon. A lot of these quests are really funny too, so definitely do the side quests because there's a good bit of humor in them. Will it be fun for newcomers to the Shin Megami Tensei series? This will possibly be my first one. Again, I say that the bar of entry is Nocturne, and that you should probably start from there, but with the coming of the added difficulty tiers, I would say yes, but he goes on to say yes. Thank you for taking interest in this game. This one is more like a spin-off from the Shin Megami Tensei's numbered series and requires no prior knowledge to play. This game is rather challenging even within the Shin Megami Tensei series, duh. But in this remake, we've added an option that allows you to adjust the game's difficulty to your liking. We hope that you enjoy. So, don't shy away, don't be afraid to jump into Strange Journey Redux. I almost want to say go back and play the original just to see how it differs. If you're feeling really froggy, that's a topic for another video. We'll cover that in another video. Few personal opinions. Since religious imagery and symbolism play a huge part of your games, do you have a favorite myth, lore, or culture/religion that's not your own that you find particularly fascinating or inspiring? Ishida goes on to say that I think the impact that religion has on someone will differ from person to person. But what personally interests me the most is what form some of these religions initially started in. Naturally, there are religious figures who are considered deities in a more traditional sense, but I like the kind of beings that humanity created to answer a need, like the yokai that are born from Japanese folklore. I also like the idea of godlike beings born from a shift in values as the times change, like Medea from American Gods, which I really need to read/watch, by Neil Gaiman, because those gods are strange yet believable. In regards to like a favorite, ideology or religion that, the Shin Megami Tensei franchise samples, I can't really pick one. I have favorite demons, but not a specific lore. I just like the idea that, all these religions and beliefs and cultures like clash together in one place. I always describe it as a high school reunion for deities, and like you have Odin in one corner, you have excuse me, you have Vishnu and Shiva just talking amongst each other. You have the Christian angels, Michael, Uriel, Sister Gabriel. I call her Sister Gabby. And then you have this big, giant green penis over in the corner just chilling. Everybody loves Mara. But yeah, I can't really pick a favorite ideology. I just love the fact that they bring together so many ideologies into one form of media. And that's what really kind of drew me to SMT. Would you like to make another military-themed Shin Megami Tensei game? Yes, if it's possible. I'd like to create a continuation of this game, but lately I've been wanting to try to creating a story with a setting that's more like a slice of life. Perhaps something like a secret academy where Demon Tamer students would gather would be interesting. I would be interested in seeing that as well. I'm kind of thinking that that's what Liberation is going to be. The Liberation, the mobile game. It's already been out in Japan. That is coming to the West. We don't know when. Really looking forward to that one. But something like that. Yeah. When he said this, I kind of immediately thought of Demi Kids, but I've never played Demi Kids, and I've seen it played, and it's more of the kid-friendly Shin Megami Tensei. I might want to give it a shot one day. I might include it into Shin Megami Tensei Saturdays. We'll see. But yeah, I would be interested in something like this. I would hope that he develops something like this. Which alignment do the devs choose when getting to play the games after finishing development? While the game was in development, I had to play it over and over and over and over and over even more. So honestly, I don't want to touch this game for at least a couple of years. I can completely understand. Personally, I like the neutral route, so I think that I'd choose that route if I were to play. But then again, if I play based on how I honestly feel, I'd probably end up in the chaos route without me even noticing it. Me personally, I would probably end up in more often than not, I do end up in the kind of law endings, because it's how I play, and apparently I'm a Boy Scout in SMT. But after that, I usually try to go back and deviate from what I did in my first playthrough, and maybe get a chaos ending. I really try to shoot for a neutral. It's difficult. If you try to shoot for a neutral ending in any SMT game, good luck. You have to keep a lot of stuff you do alignment wise. You gotta kind of have to keep that in check, and you kind of have to go, like, if there is a way to check your alignment, you have to constantly check it and make sure that you're balancing things out. So it's really difficult to do neutral, especially on a first playthrough. So I would advise like newcomers to Strange Journey, as well as any SMT, to play it how you want to play it the first time, and then go off and try to deviate from what you did the first time. About SMT lore, its history and future. What is the criteria that the developers use to select demons to put in the compendium? The diversity of the deities and demons present in the games are one of the best SMT characteristics that make the game unique, and that's what I just said. I love the fact that they bring so many different ideologies into SMT. Watanabe answers, our criteria for the demons we select is based on the theme of the game and its story. There are no relative merits when it comes to how popular or unknown the demons are. Personally though, I'd like to select an obscure deity that can be found online as one of the main pillars of a newly introduced demon. If I do a web search on that deity after the game's release and see a Shin Megami Tensei related page and results, that will definitely put a smile on my face. And I'm glad they're doing this. I'm glad they take this into account. When you play through a SMT, like right now I'm playing through Apocalypse to get ready for the playthrough on Twitch, I see things like Tokisada, for example, which really Tokisada isn't unknown in Japanese history because he's Amakusashiro Tokisada, but it's obscure in the eyes of most people, so a lot of people don't know the lore behind Amakusashiro Tokisada, but it was just interesting to see him actually show up in SMT, and I like things like that. So I'm glad they introduced a lot of obscure demons in SMT entries. Oh, a really good question. What is the timeline of all the SMT games? Do all the events, the events of all the SMT games occur in the same universe or dimension? There's a lot of fan theory about this one. I'm just gonna read Shida's answer. This game takes place in a world and timeline that is different from the other entries in the Shin Megami Tensei series. The Demonica suit does appear in Shin Megami Tensei 4 as well, but there are no timeline connections between them. Had they been connected, perhaps we could have included some interesting crossovers, but there's no need to have any knowledge of the other games to play this one. However, there's a however here. I'm in the school of thought that all the SMTs are connected some way, somehow. The Nocturne kind of retcons this by, introducing the Amala network, and you can even, connect Persona in this through Shin Megami Tensei If, which is based on a ending of Shin Megami Tensei 1. So whenever people ask, in regards to the story, what ending is canon, all the endings are canon to something. Like, there are a few games that are based on specific endings of another game. So every ending that you get is canon to something. So again, I'm under the belief that everything is connected within the SMT universe. Are there any plans for a default female main character, or at least the option of a female main character for future titles? This would depend on each game's director, but if I'm ever given the chance to make another Shin Megami Tensei game, I'd like to consider such options. By the way, though it was never released in the US, Shin Megami Tensei If, which I just referenced, for the Super Famicom allowed you to choose the gender of the protagonist. Even though we know, if you do a little bit of digging, you know that the character, I forget Tammy's full name, but the female protagonist is the actual canon protagonist in Shin Megami Tensei If, because she appears in, I think, Persona 1 as well as Persona 2. She appears as Tammy in the US localization. So going back to everything is canon, yeah, I would definitely love to see more female main characters in other Shin Megami Tensei franchise or entries, excuse me. Any plans to expand the moral options to the game besides the classic chaos neutral law? Perhaps it could include something like we've seen in The Witcher, Mass Effect, or Fallout New Vegas, to name a few. This would also depend on each game's director, but if I'm ever given the chance to make another Shin Megami Tensei game, I would like to expand on that aspect. However, I'm also interested in working on a project with a storyline that does not branch off, so he wants to do something more linear, I guess. We see that a lot with Persona from now on. Persona is a more linear game. There are bad endings, but it's not like chaos, like chaos law neutral. It's just you basically go kill whatever god is threatening Tokyo or the world at the time. I would like to follow a similar story to The Last of Us, which follows the very personal journey of one man. I've been particularly interested in these types of works lately, and he goes on later in the Q&A to allude to other Western media, which is really interesting to me. About the process and development. What is the team's writing and planning process like? How do you choose which demons might take a bigger role in a narrative of a single entry in the games? Ishida goes on to say that since video games are an interactive form of entertainment, we think that what's most important is that we call an experience-based theme where we consider what we want the player to experience through the game. For Strange Journey, a game system and story with a theme of exploration was taken into consideration. By doing this, the game system and story could unfold in the same direction, allowing for a level of cohesiveness between the two. The player is taking part in an investigation party with exploration as their goal. So the game system became one where you expand and improve your abilities to further this exploration. As for the selection of demons in the story, we consult staff members that excel at thinking through such things and other members that design such demons. Excuse me. For Strange Journey, the final enemy is Redacted. So we concentrated on choosing Redacted, like deities, for the demons that take on important roles. When we choose demons based on the prerequisites of the story, we are able to select demons that are persuasive and match the story's world setting. But as a result, this does limit our selection process and decreases their variations. That's the difficult part of trying to make this work. Yeah, again, I go back to kind of like fan favorite demons of mine, Vishnu, Shiva, Metatron, not because of the lore, because they were just OP. Mara, of course, Demiurge, the angels, Michael, Uriel, Gabriel. You see a lot of SMTs go on the whole chaos versus law theme. So based on whatever direction you go down, you'll see a lot of the angels in law and a lot of hell's demons like Lucifuge or Samael, Lucifer being on the chaos side. So it fits within that particular story. But I would like to see them do more stories that incorporate, other demons from other lore, other than, mainly Christian, being the central point. For example, I believe Thor was a U.S. general in SMT1 that was there was a man, basically Thor was in human disguise, and he was the one who launched the nuclear strike on Tokyo, if I'm remembering the story correctly. I'd have to go back and look at the story, but yeah, I'd like to see them introduce a lot of other deities as central plot points in other SMT entries. Just my take on it. How do you research your information for demon designs, and what sources do you look at to find stories from mythology from around the world, and how do you incorporate that into the final design? Masayuki Doi answers this. It all begins with going through the materials such as books, mythology related websites, and other resources put together by the person in charge of the story setting. Based on those materials, I sketch out details that could be used in designing the demons and characters, and then I discuss which is the best design among the team. Whether their designs remain faithful to the original mythologies or certain aspects are exaggerated is decided through this process. We just had a conversation in stream the other day about demon designs, and I go back to Oberon. Oberon from Nocturne versus Oberon from SMT4. Excuse me. Oberon in Nocturne is a little more younger looking, whereas in SMT4, he's, fatter, older, bigger beard, everything. And I say that I prefer the younger Oberon. But there are some newer designs that I like as opposed to the older. So it can go either way. But I'm looking forward to seeing how they do the new designs for Redux. What inspires you guys to keep writing the stories you create, and how do you come up with settings and area designs? I've only directed Strange Journey in the Shin Megami Tensei series, but I think the story depicted in the SMT series isn't as simple as a showdown between the demon invaders and innocent humans. I believe that the series has continuously depicted the clashes between complex ideologies and the cooperation that forms between people. With that in mind, occurrences that can easily be used as themes in such stories constantly take place in the real world we live in, for better or worse. I believe that there are many instances where we gain inspiration from such human actions. As for the area design question, the first half of Strange Journey's dungeons were designed as spaces that are the materializations of the negative karma that mankind has cast upon Earth, such as environmental destruction. They can also be taken as direct messages from the Earth of how mankind must reflect on the actions they have taken. Interesting concept. Until maybe not, but yeah, like Boots or Bootes, however you want to pronounce it, in Strange Journey, you kind of see, it's kind of like I wouldn't say post-apocalyptic, but after it looks like it's been ravaged, it looks like it's been bombed down, and it's really good to see that response from Ishida in regards to how that came about. How do you come up with these unique character designs in each game? And they're not talking about demon designs, they're talking about just character designs. Doi goes on to say that this process isn't too far from how I design demons, but I think about what parts of the character to emphasize through the materials put together by the person in charge of the story setting. For example, in regards to Alex, her role in the story is in contrast to the Red Sprite's crew. So while I was designing her, I was mindful to give her a unique equipment set and silhouette than the Red Sprite's crew. As a result, I believe that her final design is a contrast to the others and is uniquely different from them. And I'll agree, because you can see, Alex is featured on pretty much every, trailer, poster, even the box art. So you can, if you played Strange Journey before, you can see that she's a clear contrast from the Red Sprite's crew. At any point where there are plans to have a Shin Megami Tensei game take place completely in the Western world, with the exception of SJR or worldwide. Ishida says, I cannot answer concerning what we have lined up for the future, but as I answered earlier, I do daydream about different possibilities. Some of those include having one take place in space, or making one take place in Hell, and the protagonist is a law-class demon who strives to be commander of Hell's army. That's really interesting. Either way, these may be fun ideas to pursue. Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. I'd love to see that. Going back to the lore of SMT, if you ever played Devil Summoner, Raido Kuzunoha, you would find out that there are Devil Summoners from the West. There was one from France in the soda shop, and of course there was Rasputin, who's Russian. So it'd be good to see a game that doesn't take place or focus on a main character being from Tokyo or Japan. It'd be interesting for them to focus on a Western main character, maybe one day. Does fan input from surveys contribute to any of the recent projects and or ideas? For this remake, we took a lot of player feedback into account. It might be difficult to see if you compare the original and the remake side by side. Quite a number of improvements have been made based on players' opinion, which should create a more enjoyable gameplay experience. Now, I do remember that Atlus released a survey a while back. I want to say maybe about a year ago, and I think the subject of Persona came in that survey, and what they would what players would like to see, whether it be remakes or an MMO, which both in my case. I don't think it was just about Persona. I think it was just about games in general. So I think that this is maybe the culmination of that, even though it was probably in development before the survey came out. So definitely good to see that the devs are actually listening to player feedback. And the final question How have modern games developed by Atlas or otherwise influenced the direction of the SMT series, which is over 20 years old at this point, 25th anniversary last year. Strange Journey is the only title that I was involved in as a director, so I cannot say anything to summarize it at all, but I think that there are constant outside influences. It's hard to answer in detail what kind of influences, because there are too many of them. But since we keep making games where the player must clash with others who have different beliefs, I've been influenced by games that depict such conflicts and alliances. Still, this influence isn't just from video games. I think that I'm influenced by movies, novels, and even real-life incidents. I can't say in detail since I haven't played this game yet, but how Far Cry 5 attempts to integrate social backgrounds that are very difficult to handle into the game world is impressive to me as a creator myself, and I commend their bravery on tackling such themes. So yeah, it goes back to saying how he, takes different forms of media and integrates it into his own development process, and like Far Cry 5 that just came out. Yeah, it's interesting to see that, and I'm glad he's taking Western influences to into the process, and hopefully other SMT creators do take Western influences in their process as well. So these were all the questions that came out of the Q&A. Really good questions. I applaud the community for asking really, really good questions, and I applaud Atlas for picking really good questions from the community. And hopefully they do more things like this in the future. I myself will be covering a lot of news coming down the pipeline for Strange Journey Redux. We are a little over a month away from the release, May 15th for North America, May 18th for Europe. And right now, on my live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox, of course, I'm streaming, every SMT game. Right now, we just finished SMT 4, so we're going to pour Apocalypse. And hopefully I'll finish Apocalypse before, May 15th. May 15th, we'll have a full week of Strange Journey. Like, there will be nothing else going on stream. It'll just be Strange Journey. And I usually put the playthroughs on YouTube, on this YouTube channel, under the Shin Megami Tensei Saturday playlist. Sorry if they're too long. Like, I just take from my Twitch streams and cut it up as much as I can. And it's gotten shorter, but I'm working on it. I'm new at the tubs. But yeah, if you had did you have any questions that didn't get answered in this Q&A? Feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Feel free to like, dislike if you didn't like. I'm honest. I'm humble enough to take a dislike or two. Yeah, this is my first time really doing a video like this, and I hope to do more. If you would like to see more, let me know in the comment section or below. And God, I don't even know what to say. And or feel free to come to the Twitch channel as well. Feel free to subscribe, because again, I'm new at this. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will definitely see you when I see you.